The Enclomiphene Underground. The testosterone restarter doctors refused to prescribe, 12-week blood panel, cold open, and that's when his doctor looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Your testosterone will never recover. You'll be on injections for life." He was 34 years old. But here's what that doctor didn't tell him. What the entire $13 billion testosterone replacement industry is absolutely terrified you'll discover. There's a molecule, a single compound that's been hiding in plain sight for over 40 years. It doesn't shut down your natural testosterone production. It doesn't shrink your testicles. It doesn't make you dependent on weekly injections for the rest of your existence. It does the exact opposite. It restarts your entire hormonal system. It tells your brain to produce more testosterone naturally. And it's so effective that men who were told they'd never recover are posting blood panels showing testosterone levels that would make a 20-year-old jealous. The compound is called Enclomiphene, and by the time this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why your doctor has never mentioned it, why the pharmaceutical industry pretends it doesn't exist, and why underground biohacking communities are calling it the single greatest discovery in male hormonal optimization in decades. This isn't a supplement. This isn't wishful thinking. This is 12 weeks of documented blood work. This is peer-reviewed science that nobody wants to talk about. Welcome back to the Real Bio Protocol. ACT1. The problem. Let's talk about what the testosterone industry doesn't want you to know about the product they're selling you. Here's the mainstream narrative, the story they've been feeding men for the last 20 years. Your testosterone is low. It happens with age. The only solution is testosterone replacement therapy. You'll need to inject synthetic testosterone, usually sapionate or enanthate, once or twice per week, every week for the rest of your life. Sounds reasonable, right? You're low on something, so you add more of that thing. Simple math. But here's what they conveniently forget to mention. The moment you inject external testosterone, your body receives a signal. That signal says, "Hey, we've got plenty of testosterone floating around. We don't need to make any more." And your body listens. Your hypothalamus, the master control center of your hormonal system, sends a message to your pituitary gland. That message contains something called gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GnRH. And when external testosterone floods your system, that GnRH signal goes silent. Your pituitary stops producing luteinizing hormone, LH. That's the hormone that tells your testicles to produce testosterone. No LH means no natural testosterone production. Zero. Your endogenous production doesn't just decrease, it stops. And your testicles, they atrophy. They literally shrink. Studies show testicular volume decreases by an average of 25 to 30% within the first 6 months of TRT. But it gets worse. When you try to come off TRT, maybe you want to have kids, maybe you're tired of the injections, maybe you realize this wasn't the solution you were promised, your body has forgotten how to produce testosterone on its own. Some men never recover. We're talking years of suppression. We're talking permanent damage to the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. We're talking about a 2020 study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism showing that 15% of men who discontinue long-term TRT experience persistent hypogonadism even after 2 years off treatment. Think about that. 15%. That's not a small number. That's 1 in 7 men who are told, "Sorry, your body is broken now. Time to go back on the injections." And the TRT industry, they're not crying about it. Because that's not a bug, it's a feature. Every man who can't recover is a customer for life. Every atrophied testicle represents 30 to 40 more years of prescription refills. Every shutdown hypothalamus is guaranteed recurring revenue. The global testosterone replacement market is projected to hit $13 billion by 2030. That's not healthcare. That's a subscription model using your endocrine system as collateral. But what if there was another way? What if instead of replacing your testosterone and shutting down your natural production, there was a compound that could restart it? What if you could trick your brain into thinking your testosterone was low when it's actually climbing, forcing it to produce more LH, more FSH, more natural testosterone? That compound exists. It's been studied for decades. It's not hiding in some underground lab. And the reason you've never heard of it is precisely because it works too well. ACT2, the hidden truth. Let me tell you about a pharmaceutical company called Repros Therapeutics. In 2012, they were developing a drug called Enclomiphene citrate, branded as Androxyl. This wasn't a steroid. This wasn't testosterone. This was something far more elegant. Enclomiphene is a selective estrogen receptor modulator, a SERM. But unlike other SERMs, enclomiphene is a single purified isomer. See, most people have heard of Clomid, clomiphene citrate, which has been used for decades in fertility treatment and post-cycle therapy. But what most people don't know is that Clomid is actually two molecules mixed together. Regular Clomid contains about 62% Enclomiphene and 38% Enclomiphene. These two isomers have completely different effects on the body. Enclomiphene is estrogenic. It can actually cause mood swings, visual disturbances, and a host of side effects that make Clomid notorious in bodybuilding circles. Enclomiphene, pure Enclomiphene, it's almost entirely anti-estrogenic at the hypothalamus. It blocks estrogen receptors in exactly the places you want them blocked, without the estrogenic activity that makes regular Clomid problematic. And here's where it gets interesting. Repros Therapeutics ran multiple phase 3 clinical trials. They had thousands of patients. The results were nothing short of remarkable. A 2013 study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology showed that Enclomiphene increased total testosterone by an average of 250 to 400 nanograms per deciliter in hypogonadal men, not by injecting testosterone, by stimulating the body's own production. Another study, published in Fertility and Sterility in 2015, demonstrated that men taking Enclomiphene maintained normal sperm counts while dramatically increasing testosterone. Compare that to TRT, where sperm counts often drop to zero within months. A 2014 paper in BJU International showed that Enclomiphene successfully restored testosterone levels in men with secondary hypogonadism, the most common form of low T, with minimal side effects and no testicular atrophy. The drug worked, the science was solid, the clinical trials were successful. So what happened? The FDA rejected it. Twice. Not because it was dangerous, not because it didn't work. The FDA's stated reason was that repros hadn't adequately demonstrated a clinical benefit beyond the hormone numbers themselves. They wanted more long-term data. They wanted more studies. Critics called the decision absurd. Here was a drug that could restore natural testosterone production, preserve fertility, and free millions of men from lifetime injection dependence, and the FDA wanted more paperwork. Meanwhile, injectable testosterone, which causes dependency, testicular atrophy, potential cardiovascular risks, and secondary polycythemia, sailed through approval decades ago and remains the standard of care. Repros Therapeutics went bankrupt in 2020. But Enclomiphene didn't disappear. It went underground. Research chemical suppliers started synthesizing it. Compounding pharmacies began offering it off-label. Clinics in Europe and Australia started prescribing it as a TRT alternative. And thousands of men started posting their blood work online. What those blood panels show has the testosterone replacement industry scrambling for damage control. ACT3, the mechanism. Let's get into the actual science of why Enclomiphene works. Because once you understand the mechanism, you'll never look at testosterone the same way again. Your body produces testosterone through a system called the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, or HPG axis. Think of it as a hormonal feedback loop with three key players. First, your hypothalamus, the master regulator sitting at the base of your brain. It monitors hormone levels in your blood and responds by releasing gonadotropin-releasing hormone, or GnRH. Second, your pituitary gland, a pea-sized structure that receives the GnRH signal and responds by releasing two critical hormones, luteinizing hormone, LH, and follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH. Third, your testes, which receive LH and respond by producing testosterone. FSH stimulates sperm production. Here's the key. This system operates on negative feedback. When testosterone levels rise, your hypothalamus senses it and reduces GnRH production. Less GnRH means less LH. Less LH means less testosterone production. But here's what most people don't know. Your hypothalamus doesn't actually detect testosterone directly. It detects estrogen. Testosterone is converted into estrogen through an enzyme called aromatase. When estrogen levels rise in the hypothalamus, that's the signal that suppresses GnRH. Your brain essentially uses estrogen as a proxy measurement for testosterone status. This is where Enclomiphene becomes brilliant. Enclomiphene binds to estrogen receptors in the hypothalamus. It acts as a competitive antagonist, blocking estrogen from binding to those receptors. As far as your hypothalamus is concerned, estrogen levels are low, even if they're actually normal or elevated. What happens when your hypothalamus thinks estrogen is low? It panics. It thinks testosterone must be crashing, and it responds the only way it knows how, by increasing GnRH secretion. More GnRH means more LH. A 2016 study in the Journal of Clinical Pharmacology showed that Enclomiphene increased LH levels by 100 to 300% within the first week of administration. That's not a typo. LH levels doubled or tripled. More LH means your testes receive a powerful signal to produce testosterone. And because this testosterone is being produced endogenously, by your own Leydig cells, there's no negative feedback loop telling your body to shut down production. Your testes don't atrophy. They're actually being stimulated. Some users report their testicles increasing in size during Enclomiphene treatment. The exact opposite of what happens on TRT. Your sperm production stays intact because FSH remains elevated. In fact, Enclomiphene has been studied as a male fertility treatment precisely because it maintains spermatogenesis while boosting testosterone. And here's the most remarkable part. When you stop taking Enclomiphene, there's no crash. Unlike TRT, where stopping means months or years of struggling to restart natural production, Enclomiphene users typically maintain elevated testosterone levels for weeks after discontinuation. Some maintain their gains permanently, as the drug appears to reset the HPG axis to a higher baseline. A 2015 study tracking men after Enclomiphene discontinuation found that testosterone levels remained significantly elevated compared to pre-treatment baselines for at least 16 weeks after stopping the drug. Your body remembers how to produce testosterone. Enclomiphene just reminded it. A CT4 real-world application, alright. Let's talk about what this actually looks like in practice. Enclomiphene is not approved by the FDA in the United States for any indication. I need to be clear about that. What I'm about to describe comes from clinical trial data, published research, and the experiences documented by users in medical literature and online communities. Typical dosing in clinical trials ranged from 12.5 milligrams to 25 milligrams per day. Most studies used a 25 milligrams daily dose taken orally in the morning. The timeline based on published data looks something like this. Week 1 to 2. LH begins rising within days. Some users report improved mood, energy, and libido within the first week, though this could be partially placebo. Blood work typically shows LH increasing before testosterone starts climbing. Week 3 to 4. Total testosterone levels begin rising measurably. The 2013 Wehill study showed average increases of 250 to 300 nanograms per deciliter by week 4. Many users start noticing improved workout recovery, better sleep, and enhanced mental clarity during this phase. Week 5 to 8. Testosterone levels typically plateau at their new elevated baseline. Studies showed total testosterone levels reaching 450 to 750 nanograms per deciliter in previously hypogonadal men. This is where most users report the full spectrum of benefits: increased strength, improved body composition, better libido, enhanced confidence. Week 9 to 12. Steady state. Blood panels at this point often show testosterone levels that rival or exceed what many men achieve on moderate dose TRT, but with preserved LH, preserved FSH, and preserved testicular function. Who is Enclomiphene potentially appropriate for? Based on published research, the best candidates appear to be men with secondary hypogonadism, meaning the problem originates in the brain, hypothalamus, pituitary, rather than the testes themselves. This is actually the most common form of low testosterone in men under 50. Men experiencing testosterone suppression after anabolic steroid cycles have also used Enclomiphene as part of post-cycle recovery protocols, though this application is not well studied in clinical settings. Men who want to preserve fertility while addressing low testosterone symptoms are another population where Enclomiphene appears promising based on clinical data. Who should approach with extreme caution or avoid? Men with primary hypogonadism, where the testes themselves are damaged or non-functional, likely won't benefit, as the mechanism requires functional Leydig cells to respond to LH. Anyone with a history of blood clots, liver disease, or estrogen-sensitive conditions should be extremely cautious, as SERMs can affect clotting factors and liver function. What about blood work? If someone were using Enclomiphene, critical markers to monitor would include total and free testosterone, LH and FSH, estradiol, E2, comprehensive metabolic panel, liver enzymes especially, complete blood count, watch hematocrit and hemoglobin, SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, pre-treatment, mid-treatment around week 6, and post-treatment blood panels would be essential for anyone considering this compound. Where does Enclomiphene come from today? Since FDA approval was denied, the compound exists in a gray zone. Compounding pharmacies in the U.S. can legally produce it with a physician's prescription. Some telehealth clinics offer it off-label. Research chemical suppliers sell it internationally, though quality control in that space varies dramatically. Anyone considering this route needs to understand they're operating outside the realm of FDA-approved medicine. Working with a knowledgeable physician, preferably one experienced with male hormone optimization, isn't just recommended, it's essential. ACT5, the bigger picture. Step back with me for a moment. Why doesn't your doctor know about this? Why isn't this on every news channel, every men's health website, every TRT clinic's menu of options? Follow the money. A monthly supply of injectable testosterone cypionate costs pharmaceutical companies pennies to manufacture. But with patents expired, the margins are thin. That's not where the real money is. The real money is in lifetime customers. The real money is in men who come in for injections every week or every 2 weeks for decades. Men who need periodic blood tests. Men who develop secondary issues. Maybe their hematocrit goes too high, requiring therapeutic phlebotomy. Men who need AI drugs to control estrogen conversion. Men who need HCG to maintain testicular function. Men who come back month after month, year after year. One TRT patient represents $2,000 to $5,000 per year in direct revenue. Plus lab work, plus ancillary medications, plus clinic visits. Over a 30-year treatment span, that's a $60,000 to $150,000 patient lifetime value. Now imagine a drug that fixed the underlying problem. A drug that restarted natural production. A drug that let men walk away after a few months with their hormones restored. What's the patient lifetime value on that? A few $100s, maybe $1,000. The economics don't favor a cure. The economics favor management. And that's before we even talk about the fertility clinics who profit from men on TRT needing expensive interventions to conceive, or the urologists who make a living from treating TRT-induced complications. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's just capitalism operating exactly as designed. You are not a patient to this system. You are a recurring revenue stream with a hormone problem. They have every incentive.